My name is Dr. Ronald Scott McDowell, and I'm an artist, professor at Tuskegee University from time to time, and teach art all over the United States to those who are interested in exploring their minds and being very creative. I'm the doctor, artist, to come and teach them. I've been doing this since I was 11 months old. This is me at 11 months old with my mother, and this is when I started drawing. That's my mom on the picture in the back. I started crying because my brothers, my two older brothers, and my father would always, when my father came in from work in the evenings in the steel mill, I was in a high chair or crawling around on the floor, and they would draw and they would push me away because I get in the way because I wanted to draw with them. I was 11 months old. I pull myself up on the little coffee table, and they pushed me away, and I started screaming and crying. So the next day, I would remember about the art because to me, plain pieces of white paper would turn into moving figures to me in the child's mind, in the baby's mind. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. Got to do that. And they went. At the time, nobody would teach me. So my mother couldn't understand why I was always crying and having a fit when my brothers were going to school, my father was going to work. I'm there with her and my other sister, Linda, who's 2 years older than me, and she'd be quiet and playing, and I'd be screaming and hollering, just throwing tantrum. I wanted to draw. And my mom figured it out. So she got me some pencil and paper and crayons. And I started drawing, and she said she never heard a peep out of me after that. I was into my creative mode. In a way, because in the kindergarten, the teacher had us drawing stuff, and she said, I want you kids to draw something out of steel. So I decided to draw the two safety patrols. The one safety patrol, the big kid, 5th and 6th grade, would let us kindergartners go through the two yellow lines, and I knew that the sign was made out of steel. The red sign with the letters say stop in white, and the cars would stop on one side and both sides of the two lines, and I drew everything, the car, the little kids crossing the road, and the safety patrol. And it won first prize all over the Bay Area, and it was in all the newspapers. My earliest trainers were my two older brothers. I would bug the mess out of them because it's a funny thing. When you're kids and you're younger than your older siblings, you always want to become like them. They're your first heroes. They're your first role models. So I wanted to just be like my two older brothers. They would draw lions and tigers and bears because they had the knack for drawing things, and they would look real. And the teachers would put their artwork in the library, in the cafeteria where all the kids congregated once every day at lunch, and once a week we go to the library. And I wanted to draw the lion like my brother drew. So I took my little lion to school the next day. I was in the 3rd grade, and 2nd grade actually. And the kid said, "Oh, that's a cute little mouse." And I thought I drew the mane on the lion, and I was just crushed. So that began my trying to win acceptance and get this little pat on the back kids want was through art. And my brothers got it, and they didn't even care. They never thought of second thing about it. My older brother Lonnie, he started sculpting owls and stuff in school, and he was in a newspaper before I was. I just wanted to be like them. So yes, those were my first lessons. My brothers would teach me how to do a nose, a mouth, or something, because I would bug my mother, because they wouldn't do it on their own. My mother would tell them, "This boy whines so much. If y'all don't teach this boy how to draw a nose, or I have to kill him." And that was the beginning of my lessons. And my brother would pick me up like by my neck because they were bigger than me and strong. They were very physical. They liked to fight because we grew up in the projects. And they outside beating up everybody. So I was their next punching bag. So when I wanted to draw, I'd get beat up first, and then they punched me around. "You always picking us. Come on!" And they pick me up by my shoulders and throw me in the chair, and I'm happy because I'm getting ready to learn how to do a nose. And one day my brother Lonnie, he would say, "You do a profile like this," because I would make the profile with the round face. I had it all wrong. And my brother said, "You do a profile." I took my face in the mirror in the bathroom upstairs, and he went down, out, in, out, in, out, down, in. See, look, like that. Not straight. It goes in. So I got it. I was in the 3rd grade when I did my first profile. Well, I have an honorary doctorate. That's why they call me Dr. McDowell. My first doctorate I got at the University of West Alabama in Livingston, a prestigious college. I did my research. I was a commencement speaker. Yeah, you guys might think I'm crazy, but I had no idea I was going to be the commencement speaker. We stayed at the president's house the weekend before the couple of days before commencement, before graduation, and I was given a cap and gown and said, "You're on." I'm like, "I'm on for what?" You know. Anyway, I prayed about it because I'm very spiritual. I believe in God, and I asked God, what can I say to 10,000 young students who are graduating and people coming just to see me? And what came to me was passion. And I talked about passion for 90 minutes, and I got a standing ovation. I told the students that any profession that you aspire to, that you got your degrees in for the last 4 or 5 years, I want you to know it becomes a job when you don't love it. My passion has always been my artwork. Make sure you love what you're doing when you go into the workplace. And that was my whole um, basis of my speech for the commencement graduation that day in 2006. Well, the first person I came across was, I think I met Diana Ross before I met Michael. I was friends with her brother Chico. She has a younger brother around my age. His name is Chico. Because I graduated a year before them. When I graduated at 17, I went straight to Hollywood from Pittsburg, California, which is 6 hours driving, about 45, 50 minutes on a plane. So a friend of mine, William Lee, whom I just got off the phone with, I was a kid, and he asked my mother if I can go to Hollywood with him because he worked with Marvin Gaye. And I could at that, I don't know what I did wrong, but I stayed on the punishment. And I wasn't supposed to leave the yard that day. And she said, well, we'll leave it that week. So when Billy Wayne came over, William Lee, he said, I work with Marvin Gaye and they put Motown in Hollywood. And I want to take your son Ronald because Ronald can draw and he can sing and dance because I was always in singing groups. I was always entertaining. And I always was the lead singer for the bands and in the groups and stuff. So my mama said, yeah, he can go. That shocked me to the core of my existence. She wouldn't let me go up the street. I couldn't even leave the house, but she let me go with this man to Hollywood. So he got a plane ticket, and he said, the next day we flew to Hollywood. And I ran into a lot of the Motown producers on Sunset Boulevard. And when I graduated a couple of years later, I went back because I knew they were there. I knew exactly where to go to. And my goal was to get with these stars because I knew they were successful and they could help me become successful. So I did meet Diana Ross. My first manager was um, Rosie Greer. Rosie Greer was the first person who managed me in Pacoima. I was living in Pacoima with some friends. And our John Henry, the movie producer, did an art show for me. And Nichelle Nicholas came from Star Wars. And she loved my work. She didn't buy anything, but she loved my work. And she was so nice. And I said, this is what I want to get around these kind of people. And I met, if I had a list, and if you had all day, I can tell you the hundreds of stars that I've met, and a lot of them have purchased my work. I knew Whoopi Goldberg. I did a movie with her called The Long Walk Home. I knew all the Jacksons. Michael became my first art student. I met him through his father, Joseph Jackson. I was doing some artwork for the producers at Motown, Frank Wilson, and Mr. Jackson had his boys in the studio at Mo West Studios on Romaine Boulevard in North Hollywood at the time. That's where Rick James, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, the Supremes, Diana Ross, the Fabulous Temptations, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. I can go on and on and on. I met all of them there. But Joe was there that afternoon when I was delivering a painting for Frank Wilson. Barry Gordy, who founded Motown, sister Gwen Gordy, bought the first painting I did of Diana Ross and Billy Dee Wynn from the movie Lady Sings the Blues. And it was actually Gwen Gordy who opened the door for me at Motown Records. After that, Barry Gordy bought some of my work, Mr. Gordy himself. Um, I can't list the producers. Even though I was a teenager still, but even 20 years old, I was invited to the taping of Soul Train, the taping of the Midnight Special, and you would see groups live performing. After performance, I'd be backstage in the dressing room with them while they're changing their clothes, and people just trusted me. I was the kid, little skinny kid on the block with all the talent and the art, and almost 99% of the stars, from the Temptations to the Supremes, to Martha and the Vandellas, to Stevie couldn't see my work, but I would be with him at the Orange Julius before he would go up to meetings with Barry and them, but with Mr. Gordy and them. But all the people, Ray Charles, I've been in his office, Sammy Davis Jr., Red Fox, they all love my work and they often purchased it. I've always focused mainly on my artwork and doing the best that I can do in my artwork. So I didn't have time for anything else but to hone into my craft and master it to where I could do anything I want, from abstracts to still life to impressionistic art to pointillism to just three-dimensional artwork, two-dimensional artwork, mixed medium. I'm doing all of it now. People like you, people who love art, people that I see, if I see a beautiful lady or a handsome young man and I see something different about their features, then it's in my mind like a computer. I can always go back to it. Like if I say, okay, I want to do this type of person with a big nose, big lips, or small nose, big lips, or small lips, little nose, I could do it. And I mastered doing all the nationalities of people because I grew up with everybody. My best friend was Sal Rodriguez, Robert Chin, Martha Mendoza. You know, I grew up with all kinds of different people. So as a kid, I did not see color. I didn't even know racism existed growing up in California. And it was right there in my face the whole while. But when you're a kid and mama and daddy taking care of you, you don't see the pitfalls, you don't see the hatred because you're focused on what it is you have to do each day. My mother and father raised us like military. You got up in the morning, you made your bed up. If you had a lump in it, she'd come behind you, tear the whole bed up, throw everything on the floor, and say, make that bed up like I taught you. So you had to make it up where there wasn't a wrinkle in it, and you still had to get to school a mile and a half before the bell rang at 8 o'clock or 8:15. So you're leaving home at 8 o'clock because you had to redo the bed. So we learned to do that one time. So my inspiration came from my parents, who's my first heroes, and were like gods to us because whatever they told you to do, you just did it without question. And you know, I grew up where teachers beating me on the hands. I don't like to say this, but it was the truth. Because when I was a little black boy growing up, being an artist made you weird. If you were gifted at anything, you were strange, you were weird, you were oddball. You know, you weren't accepted in a lot of cases. And the teachers told me, I'm going to beat that art out of you. And they did. They beat my hands so bad I would just be shaking and crying. But the minute they turned their head, I was back at my dad's drawing. It was like, you can't stop a person from biting their nails. You can't stop a person from pulling and twiddling on their hair. Well, art to me was my outlet. It was my release form. It gave me, it relaxed me, you know, being creative, you know. And when I was on a punishment a lot of times, I would go lay under the bed. My mother sometimes didn't want me drawing because she knew drawing was like a gift for me, like, you know, a reward. So she said, I don't want you drawing either. When you're out there acting bad, you're going to stay up in this bedroom, 110 degrees in the house. We didn't have fans or air conditioning those days. So I said, I'm going to draw. So when they would bring the paper bags home from the groceries, I would draw on the paper bags, every inch of it, up under the bed in the dark. I still can draw in the dark. And that's what I did. You know, art was my inspiration, and everything around me inspired me. Animals, people. You know, I was one of those goofy kids that loved everything and everybody. And being an artist just wasn't cool for black people back in those days, especially little black boys, because how are you going to make a living when the black artists were not heard of in the 60s when I was growing up in the 70s? So I like all styles of art. I like all forms of art. Um, I don't have a favorite. All the art forms are my favorite. In fact, I buy art from other artists. If I see something that I like, rather than copy it, because I can paint anything most of artists painted from Picasso to Rembrandt to Michelangelo. I just buy it because I know that's how they make a living, you know, and this is a lot of times their only means of supporting themselves. So when the teachers at the university are paying the kids $5 to $10, maybe 20 for some excellent work, I'll give them 100, 200, I'll pay them 500. Say, this is what you're worth. Now you know, I've set the standard. You can only go up from here. And now some of those students are selling their work for thousands and thousands of dollars. But what I didn't know that I'm passing on to other students, know your own value. Know your own worth. If you don't know your own worth, people will take your work for the rest of your life for nothing. They'll say, I want this picture. How much? And I say, well, I don't know. Then they say, okay, I'm going to give you $1 for it. I've had that happen. So I teach my students, to understand the value of who they are, number one, because everybody's worth something. And number two, know the value of your work because you're putting time, your talent, your energy, your materials, all that go into play. Don't nothing come free. And that's what artists don't understand. They think it's a hobby a lot of times. No, it's not a hobby. No, this is your way you make your live, and you're sharing this with the universe. But this artwork is going to be here forever. This is a picture I did yesterday of the different streams, and I turned it into an abstract. See? And if you look at that, and you look at this picture of Tina Turner, you like, how did the same artist do it? And if you look at this picture, I call this the party. People having fun. This is the abstract. I see people in this. So that's, and these are birds, clearly, okay? This is a guy with a hat on backwards that I just did. And I do these in about 5 or 10 minutes, just as low. And you see the three lips kissing? These are abstracts, but how do artists do that and come to do this? Because nobody never taught me. This is a gift from God. This is a God-given gift. And I always tell my students and tell people that are listening that God is the first artist. He's still the first and the greatest artist. Everything we see in this world is art. You know, I have students whose parents complain, art is for sissies. I don't want my son being an artist. This was just recently at the university that I taught in. And I told the kid to go home and tell your dad to take off those drawers he got on. Take off those pants. The lunch pail he takes to work. The money he puts in the machine. The money he uses to buy gas to go to work. The house he lives in. Everything about this world comes from artists. We create it. And people benefit from it, or people enjoy it. We're creating it so that people can enjoy what we do. This is what art does. It relaxes you. It takes you into a whole different world. It takes you into the world of the artist, number one. Number two, it helps you understand who you are, because art is just recreating, recording history as we live it as artists and as we're a part of it. We just push, we take it in and we push it back out there to you, the way we see it. That's why you have the John Michel Basquiat, whose work is now selling for $200 and $300 million. That's why you have the Andy Warhols. That's why you had the Vincent Van Goghs. That's why you had the Michelangelos, the Leonardo da Vinci's, the Raphaels, the Vincent Van Goghs, even the black artists, Jacob Lawrence. You had the Henry O. Tanners. You had the Romare Beardens. You had Selma Burke. You had who did the first dime. You had all these people that create all this stuff, all this artwork, and we just take it for granted. Oh, I like this jacket I have on. An artist created this before it was sewn and made into a fashion or a garment for me to wear. So everything we do, live, touch, and breathe comes from artists. Because as I said, God is and was the first artist. You know, I never was one to plan. I just live each day as it comes. And whatever happens, happens. I'm telling you, when you're a child of God, like, I always say, God, you know, I'm your little, I used to have sandy hair. I'm your little before I started dying. But I said, you know, I'm your little sandy haired red stepchild. But I'm still yours. I'm in the family too. I'm a child of God. So whatever he dishes out every day to me, I just accept it. I just deal with it, good or bad. You know, the good I grow from, the bad I grow from. You know, that's just where I'm in my life. You know, I have many regrets. I have many things I'll take to my grave because it's not good to expose them. But I give God the credit for everything I do. And I always say, God, don't get behind me, get in front of me, lead me tomorrow. Lead me this morning. I don't know what's going to happen to today, because my mother used to tell us, and she was very smart. She said, man make plans and God sits back and laughs. That part. I want to be remembered for my art. I want to be remembered that I did try to help younger people and other people. Because, you know, I've taught babies as young as a year old to do abstracts. I've taught senior citizens, 101, 102, how to do abstracts and how to do noses and mouths. The things my brothers Rudy and Lonnie taught me, I pass on to generations to come. And the artwork that you see I leave behind is just telling the story of who my people were, not so much as me, telling the story of me, but telling the story of the generation I grew up in, the people that I met, the things that I saw, the things that affected me that I put on canvas and sculpt is what I want to remember by. So 100 years from now, like 600 years ago, we look at the Mona Lisa and we say, oh, this is how people looked then. I had my students do a study on the Mona Lisa about 3 years ago at the university, and we found out that her name was Mona Lisa Bertinelli. Her husband, she was not the artist Leonardo da Vinci, as popular belief. She was an actual woman. Her husband was a traveling merchant, and he purchased a portrait of her. He had Leonardo da Vinci paint her because it was deemed a sin, or a woman was deemed a harlot or a prostitute if she posed for an artist. That's why a lot of artists used cadavers back then. But somehow he paid Leonardo da Vinci enough money to paint his wife, the Mona Lisa. And the Mona Lisa became famous because she was stolen from the Louvre. And they put it out all over the news before there was the advent of television or technology that the famous Mona Lisa portrait was missing. That's what gave it its value and its notoriety and its fame today. Also, the fact that she was so well, so perfectly done.
Program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.